the quizzes, the playlists, and the messaging within Empower here, and what we can do, what we can provide for support for all of our teachers. You might have seen on the, and jump over to my sharing my screen now. In the webpage here where you signed up for these webinars, we have linked to an article. This is a pretty detailed article where we're going to list a whole bunch of resources. We're going to cover what those are in this webinar here. We're going to make all of these links accessible in as many places as possible. So when we're talking about the our COVID-19 or coronavirus webpage here, this is going to be the webpage that we're talking about. Very quickly, sorry, this is a new webinar program and I need to jump back and forth here. So activities, we have for you guys linked from that page. We have our activities video walkthrough. So it's going to be a video explaining exactly to the teachers how they create these activities. We've got some PDFs, both for creating activities as well as for videos for scoring, PDFs for scoring, handouts for how the students actually submit this work, and then videos for students in submitting work. We're trying to create these resources in as many formats as possible. We know some teachers like to look at a one-page document they can print out and keep on their desk. Others want a full video they can watch through and follow along with. We have found over this last week of ramping up for this in Westminster that if we provide to our teachers these resources, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable going into this experience. We have really been drilling with our teachers that they need to provide these clear action steps, specific deliverables, using these activities to report on third-party work, and then also using them to create reflections on the day's work. So what I mean by this is we have a lot of teachers that traditionally would be creating activities. They would be kind of a shell of an activity, and it kind of goes along with what's happening in the classroom. And because of that, they aren't necessarily writing full, complete action steps, directions for their students. Now we see our teachers jumping in and putting absolutely everything in there that the students are going to need. So you're going to see a lot more full, complete activities being built by the teachers. That's going to be something you're going to need to support. And the final action step that we're having all of our teachers add to these activities is creating a specific deliverable. We can no longer say, and turn in your work when you're done. Write a summary of this and give it to the teacher. We need to be real clear on what we're expecting the students to turn in and how they're going to turn it in. In this example here, it says in the text editor below, explain one clear adaptation of each animal. Make sure you save and turn this in. So being real clear as we're teaching the students how to work from home and how to submit this work. Now, obviously, if your teachers and students are very comfortable with submitting work in Empower, these are going to be no-brainers, these first two steps. If Empower has been more of a grade book and less of a full online LMS, these are going to be the first steps your teachers are going to need to focus on when moving to this distance learning. We also have teachers creating activities to help monitor what's happening outside of Empower. So, for example, Khan Academy, we have teachers sending students to Khan Academy to complete work. And originally the teacher said, well, I can just go to Khan Academy and see how they did and keep track of it that way. But what we're asking them to do, and what kind of makes sense when you think about it, is use Empower as that clearinghouse, that one place where everything is submitted. So as the students go to these third-party websites, or as they reflect, as they go through their activities for the day, come back to Empower and drop a little note in there in the activity for the teacher. Reflect on that work. We have PE teachers that are going to have students get out and get active, and their activities truly are, explain to me what you did for your 30 minutes of activity. So it's kind of combining third-party activities and websites and real-world experiences along with the activities they're creating in Empower. Again, for many of us, this is going to be pretty simple, but you need to be very clear and intentional about it when you're helping support your teachers. Same thing with the quizzes. If you have been using quizzes, you're in a good place. In fact, I was speaking with somebody the other day down in Texas, and they were thrilled that they've put all this energy and effort into learning how to create activities and quizzes and playlists because they feel that they're ready to go. There's not much they need to take on. We're highly encouraging our teachers in Westminster to keep their quizzes simple. If they start getting too complex and start covering skills that are quite difficult and aren't those foundational skills, they're going to have students feel lost at home, especially when it's a quiz. A quiz feels a little bit more serious sometimes to students than just an activity they're submitting. We're encouraging our teachers to use the quizzes in Empower to assess daily review of the content they've been working on, real small, short, simple quizzes, and using them as tickets out the door. This is like the final step of the day. When they submit this quiz, they can, I guess that says, and they're done with the class for the day. That means that a teacher at the end of the day or at the end of the class, however they're running it, they can actually go through, they can look at the proficiency results of the quiz, and they can very quickly see what needs to be adjusted in the future. Again, all of these things that happen in a well-oiled face-to-face classroom, we can do the exact same things here when we don't even see the students face-to-face anymore. Playlists. We're approaching playlists in Westminster a little bit differently. It's if your students know how to navigate them and if they know to work on the next suggested activity, that's wonderful. You're in a great place. If not, the playlist can be a little daunting to jump into. We are encouraging our teachers to think about playlists as a way to organize their week with the student. To make it real clear what is going to be done on Monday, what they would like them to do on Tuesday. And this really kind of is a bit different than what we normally ask our teachers to do. We don't ask our teachers in Westminster to schedule day by day by day for every student doing the same thing. But as they transition to this new learning environment, having that consistency and having everybody on the same page is a great way to start it, if not continue it for a while until they're comfortable. So our teachers are actually creating extended learning playlists. Each playlist would have 5 sub-playlists, 1 for each week. And each sub-playlist would have all of the activities and quizzes they're expected to work on that week. Now, if they give them a big project to start on Monday and they don't expect it to be turned in until Friday, that doesn't mean there's no activities throughout the week. Those smaller activities throughout the week would be little check-ins. Let me know today what you worked on for your project you started on Monday. So trying to get those kids to actually interact with something, to submit something, some sort of deliverable every single day. Jump back one screen here. We have an interesting image that appeared here when I converted it from my PowerPoint. We'll just ignore that there. You might be familiar with messaging like most people responded in the poll. They don't feel very comfortable in this. This is something that we had to support our teachers quite a bit on in Westminster. They are familiar with the messaging that is attached to individual activities and quizzes. They, for some reason, were not quite as familiar with the group chats for every class or every group that the students are in. We had to teach them that there actually is a separate standalone chat room, message board, if you will, for that group. So there's a lot of new learning that we had to do for the teachers. Wasn't that difficult to actually catch on, but it was just new for them. We also introduced features that have always been there in the messaging, polls in particular. Teachers are enjoying being able to create a poll, send it out to a class or to multiple classes. They've discovered that if you have 5 math classes and you send the same poll to all 5 math classes at the same time, you get the results for that all in one big group. So they're learning how to use this messaging to actually support those interactions. Another thing that I found recently from Twitter, Class Dojo shared that remote relationships are just as important as remote teaching and remote learning. Absolutely agree 100%. If you don't have a way to actually communicate and type or talk to your students, just communicating through the activities is not going to be enough to keep them engaged and to be able to check in and see how they're doing. So really encourage your teachers to message your students every single day, either as a group and as individuals. That is a requirement that we are pushing hard in Westminster, and it makes a lot of sense to have everybody else do the same thing. So we have collected all of these resources on 2 different places. You'll have access to the document on the right there, which is just a PDF. We've created simplified links. You've seen these probably at the bottom of all of these slides when you get this presentation as well. You'll see that. That's in case teachers want to print this out, or if you need to print this out and hand it to teachers, they're going to have the most useful supports right on hand when they're at home. We have also added all of these links and all of this information to this article on our knowledge base. It's titled Anytime, Anywhere Learning. The easiest way to get to it is that URL at the bottom, tinyurl.com/empoweranytime. That will take you to our playlist, to our Anytime, Anywhere Learning article. And we will keep adding more and more to this. I know that Ben was recording some more videos today, specifically for some younger students, as well as one specifically for older students, really helping them navigate Empower a little bit better as well. So we're going to keep adding to this, both on what we see as a need and what you guys let us know as a need. Now that stuff is all pre-existing stuff. Other than the resources that we've been creating and adding to that page for you, that all exists, and you might feel fine with that stuff already. Just be aware that some teachers are going to need even more support than you've provided in the past. The stuff that is new is around accountability and attendance. This is a tricky thing when you go to remote learning. How do you hold teachers accountable for doing their jobs? Because we do have to do that as leaders. And how do we know who is attending, who is actually taking part in this in terms of the students? We have right now in the system a report called the Teacher Activity Report. It gives you a whole ton of data. You can run it for various periods of time. You can see how many times they've logged in, how many evidences they've scored, how many activities have been assigned, number of playlists that are assigned, number of quizzes that have been assigned and scored. So you can get all sorts of data about what the teachers are doing in the system. That's a pretty good start. If we run this for every day that our teachers are working at home, we can kind of get a good snapshot of how well they are interacting with students online. The parts that we are going to add to this report, or possibly to a standalone report that Scott is creating right now, is that we are going to be also asking to see the number of messages to classes and groups, the numbers of messages to individuals, and the number of polls that are created. This really will tell us as district administrators, it'll create a better picture of how our teachers are interacting with not only the content they're creating, but with the students that they're teaching. We know that this is not a perfect answer. There is no perfect answer because there is no one way that teachers are working in the system. This really just gives us data to start to build baselines of what do teachers who are working online with remote learning, what does that look like for us in our district? Might look different for our second grade teachers as it does for our high school teachers. But at least we can start pulling this data to start understanding what's really happening, because we need to sometimes defend what our teachers are doing when they quote unquote aren't working because they aren't in the building. And this will help us create that story to share it with everybody. On the flip side of things, we have our students. And this is going to be different state by state. It'll probably change day by day until they land on solid answers everywhere in terms of attendance and funding and how all of this stuff is wrapped up together. It's going to be quite a mess for many people. Currently, we have a report in Empower called the Student Activity Report, and you can see here it's pretty limited. We've never really had much of a need for this. We've never really pushed this, and so it really just shows how many times students are logging in. To this, we are going to add a whole bunch of more information. We're going to add information about which classes and groups these students have interacted with, as well as the teacher name attached to that. The number of activities that the students have accessed. So if a student opens up an activity, that will go against that count there. The number of submitted evidences. So if they submit something for an activity, whether it's a text, a simple response, or attaching files, what have you, they've submitted, the number of quizzes they've submitted, as well as how many messages they've either shared with teachers or with groups or classes they belong to. Again, it's not a perfect answer. We don't have a perfect way to say they attended school or they didn't. The only way that I've seen that has been done so far in online learning is the student has logged into a class during this specific time. And there's no reason we feel the need to lock our kids down to being in their math playlists from 8 till 9, because that's when their class usually meets. So again, by creating these reports and collecting all of this data, we can start to understand what does it look like, what does attendance look like in a competency-based system when they're working online. Good to hear that. Student report will be helpful. Chat there. So the accountability and the attendance, these are not live in the system yet. Scott is working on these, possibly as we're talking here, along with some of his team. But this data will be available retroactively. So this is all information that we have in various tables in the system. So he's just pulling it all together into one place. So we will be able to pull this even for Monday and Tuesday of this week. The support and communication that we've realized that we need to provide in Westminster and from Empower is a huge component. This is odd times we're in, and we need to make sure that everybody feels supported. In Westminster in particular, we've created a teacher back channel. If you aren't familiar with the back channel, it really is just a way for conversations and discussions and resources to be shared that is more behind the scenes. We just created a Google group in Westminster. We have a section for teacher support. Under there, we have a section for technology questions, Empower questions, and general questions. And then we have a whole section on every single content area in our district. And if teachers find good resources, we're encouraging them to drop them in there, because there's no reason every math teacher needs to struggle and find the resources if somebody else has already found it. So creating some way for teachers to support each other. If you don't do that, then they're going to feel even more isolated. I don't know if any of you have actually worked from home before. It's easy to feel isolated. It's easy to feel like you are by yourself. And so if we give them some sort of back channel, some way to communicate, maybe you open up Slack for your school and give everybody an account on Slack and have them communicate that way, or a specialized Facebook group, what have you. Just give your teachers some way to interact with each other. We're asking our teachers to communicate a lot with the families. Emails from the teacher's home are going to be very important. Many teachers are emailing every single day to every parent in their classes. If you are not familiar in Empower, if you go to the class roster, there is a button where you can click and copy every parent address that is in your SIS that has synced to Empower. If you're syncing your parent email addresses, they can click that, copy them, paste it right into the BCC field of their email, and fire off an email home to the parents. So emails from the teachers are important, and phone calls. Sometimes we just have to get on the phone, especially with some of these younger kids. We just need to get on the phone and talk with parents and see how things are going. We are encouraging our teachers in Westminster to open Google Voice accounts. This allows them, they connect it to their Google account that they have. This allows them to come up with a local phone number that they can route all of their cell phone calls in and out through this Google Voice number, and they don't have to give out their personal numbers to parents or to people in the community. So they can still feel like they can call and just be one phone call away from anybody who needs them at any time during the day. And of course, Google Voice, you can set it up and get real complex, and you can say if it's after 4 p.m., send it to my voicemail. So you can really tweak it. And it's a great tool once the teachers have that set up. Many of you are looking at the school and the district level responses. Make sure that communication from the schools and the district is consistent with what the teachers are communicating. You have to make sure the teachers are consistent with what you're communicating as well. But don't just communicate without their input. Let them know how you are planning to communicate. We don't want to inundate our parents with the same information 4 times every day. But then again, they do want to hear from us. The more we can be in touch with them, the better. You're going to need to strengthen your tech support somehow. That's been my primary job in Westminster over the last couple of days. For those of you that don't know, I actually live overseas. I live in Australia now with my family. So I generally will kind of work part of their day and part of the Australian work day. I've shifted my work hours to match Westminster's work hours because they need that tech support. They need someone who can be dedicated to answer emails. They can call my Google Voice number. We can have a Zoom chat back and forth with people. But you're going to have people that face problems. Even if you've done some incredible training face-to-face, as soon as you send them home, there's going to be issues that you're going to need to support, both with Empower and with just general tech use and overall. So make sure you have some system to help support them with that. And we recommend being mindful about adopting other resources. There are a lot of resources out there for free now. A lot of people are giving out subscriptions, and that is just wonderful that these companies are going out of their way, are putting profits aside and helping teachers now. Be careful about bringing on too many resources. Every additional resource your teachers bring on is another resource that the students need to learn how to use. Very few resources are actually just plug and play where there's zero learning that needs to happen. Some of them are, but when you're bringing on whole new platforms to use for a 2-month period, that could create additional stress. So make sure that what you do take on is first legal in terms of FERPA and everything, student rights and student data, and make sure you don't throw that out as well. Go through all the correct processes for adopting new resources. But make sure that you aren't taking on too much for the students. Sometimes it's easier to go simple and maybe not provide them 20 new resources, but just bring on 1 or 2. So just be mindful about that. So we need to hear from you guys. We need to hear what your needs are, what your plans are. I actually spoke to somebody who actually is in this chat right now, and she said that they feel that they're in a great place. They feel that they have put in a lot of work with Empower in the past, and it's going to pay off here in the near future for them. They did offer up some suggestions, so we took those on board and passing those on. If anybody has any additional needs, any additional suggestions, any additional questions, I'm going to actually click unmute all. Now, you guys aren't all unmuted yet. On your side, you would have to accept that or actually activate your mic. But if anybody has anything that they want to add, any questions for us, I know that a few other people from Empower are in here. Go ahead and share those now. You can do it in the chat. You can do it with voice, or you can send us emails later. Thanks for joining us. I know that, again, everybody has a lot of work on their plates these days, and I'm glad you could carve out a little bit of time to spend some time with us thinking about this and hearing about the resources that we have. Everything that we have, we will make sure that you guys get copies of.
This is Kanisha Kelly from Kingsman Academy. I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear Kanisha.
Okay, great. We have to, as an independent LEA, submit our
Oh yeah, I can
That's
hear.
weird. I can't. Was she speaking there?
Okay, I'll do my best.
I guess you can answer that.
Ben always knows everything.
Oh boy.
We have to submit instructional plans to be approved by our authorizer. I see that you guys have a lot of documents there. Do you have any that are sort of in district level language that we can submit with our plan? So imagine like an authorizer of a school district reviewing a plan. Are there any documents in that language that we can share?
So Kevin, I think we've talked about this with Kanisha before. I think the answer is no, but maybe Kevin's got more creative ideas. We talked about previously where they need to submit plans, their lesson plans, in a format that like a district authorizer could review. Is there any way for them to export Empower activities or playlists or things like that into some format that's viewable in that sense?
And I actually have
that does sound familiar.
Separate question.
And I don't know if we had a clear yes answer last time. Thinking as I'm speaking here, unfortunately, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, it's something that we could do, a one-off here and there, pulled from the database for them. But that would really need to be something they would need to do on a ongoing basis, I would assume.
Yeah, I need to give an overview of Empower, just the system itself, but not in the language that's student-friendly or teacher-friendly, but something that an administrator or an authorizer would review. Yes. Do you have any sort of just more technical language that we can share as a part of our instructional plan that we're submitting?
It is interesting that you can hear them, and
how long? There. Just a text?
Yeah, just a text. I just need something that's more just higher level, not something that a teacher would need to see or a student or a parent, but something that something higher than like a superintendent. So like, this is what Empower, this is what it can do, this is what it can offer. Yeah. Just a summary sort of document that we can include in our instructional plan.
I can't think of anything that's currently made, but I wouldn't mind whipping something up for you, grabbing snippets from the website and different documents that I know of. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that would be extremely helpful. That was my plan B if you guys didn't already have anything to go. But if you do have something that you can send over, that would be extremely helpful.
Well, I can at least send you a good draft of it that you can polish up pretty easily, I think. So
perfect. Okay.
I'll try to do that today or tomorrow.
And then my second question is, are you guys offering any virtual training sessions like this, but tailored to teachers over the next few weeks? I know that the videos are available, but it's helpful for them to be able to kind of ask questions.
I really feel out of loop here. You guys can hear each other.
So sessions like that, we hadn't yet made any plans along those lines, though. Like I said, I am trying to revamp some of the videos to be more kind of maybe more accessible in that regard. But we are very open, as I said in the chat. If such things is exactly what lots of districts need, we are just wanting to support you whatever we can do. So if that's a need, keep us posted on that. Are the video, is there something about a live session like that you think would be more helpful, more engaging than videos? Is it the Q&A time that's really valuable?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the onboarding that our teachers had. I think it was last year, where you could explain something, but then they could ask the question. You would give them a chance to try it out, and then kind of troubleshoot issues along the way. Our teachers who went through that, they're going to be good to go, when we really get this rolling. But everyone who didn't have it, they're gonna struggle quite a bit.
Definitely.
So we can talk offline. I think we're trying to set Fridays as sort of like our PD days for teachers. If there any availability on your end to kind of host sessions, we would be extremely interested in that, at least tailored to teachers who we know are going to struggle up front.
Okay, that's very good. We're going to regroup as our team after we get some of your feedback here, and we'll certainly follow up with you, be it individually and collectively, and find out what we can do. to fill these needs for you. Please reach out to us. Keep us posted on your needs, things like this. So let's talk Kinesha offline, and we will talk on our team as well, and find out what kind of how to meet all the needs in the most effective way and get specific where we can.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Kevin, that's the end of Kinesha's question. I know you can't hear us. Is there anyone else have questions that we can
That's all right.
field for you?
And I did put in the chat that everything that we make for schools, unless it's obviously very specific, we'll make sure that we add to all of those pages.
Any other questions?
This is Terry from SAU 80. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Terry.
Hi. Where we are at, we have two schools that are, this is their first year in Empower. So they've been using Google Classroom, and we have to kind of move quickly on this. Do you have any thoughts about ways that Google Classroom can work with Empower that will help us? Any kind of tutorials that would show that merge or any other ideas would be great for us.
Yeah, great. The question is about can teachers that are using Google Classroom beginning to use Empower more and more, and how we can integrate those to make the transition smooth. One of the big wins is being a single sign-on tool, as you probably know. While Empower doesn't connect to some of the structures that Classroom has, of course, like the groups and things like that, what is available directly in Empower is the work that they've done in classrooms with their docs, with their worksheets, with their slideshows, all of those things and all that functionality, they can find in Empower already. We do have a tutorial about Google use in Empower. If people sign in with Empower, when they're making activities, when students are interacting, they'll have a button there that's a drive. It looks like a Google Drive symbol, and they can browse their Google Drive there, find their resources, and interact with them within the context of an activity, for example. Turn things in, annotate things, so they work in the Google environment, but are able to use the Empower scoring tools, etc. Like I said, and I think along the lines of what you're asking, there's some Google Classroom features that won't translate, but most of that stuff, which I think is where most people put the real value in the work that they've done in those docs and things, will be there immediately. Does that help?
And if there is particular functions that don't exist in Empower, point those out to us. Let us know what they are, because most of that stuff is built on just Google's open APIs that we probably have access to. I know that within Empower, they, in the recent history, they added the ability when you add a Google Doc to either make it visible, editable by all, or make those copies directly into the student's Drive folder, just like Google Classroom does. So might be able to make some changes in the future as well if you find those needed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other needs, questions? What are some of the struggles that you're staring down the barrel of? You're not sure how to tackle?
This is Kanisha again from Kingsman. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the attendance piece is extremely important, and thank you for spending time with that. We've been thinking through if you guys don't get anything on your end, what alternative ways we can use to not. I'm less concerned about teacher accountability and more about sort of student level accountability. If you guys kind of don't get things up and running within, let's say, a week, do you have any other ideas that we can use to sort of see how much kids are engaging in the system? Or do you anticipate, having what you talked about here being up and running pretty soon?
So Kevin, you may know this, some of the attendance pieces that you were demonstrating, that's really important. Do you know a timeline around when those things are available? Are they already available, everything you've looked at?
Those screenshots already available right now. So the teacher side of thing is pretty complete. And that's the teacher activity report. The only thing that's missing out of that is the data related to messaging and polls. That's going to be added here. And then the student side really isn't a very complex report, and that should be coming. Both of those should be completed sometime this week.
Can you hear him, Kenesha?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Kevin. Teacher activity reports, you'll find them in your report viewer tool. You can go there through the menu. You also find them on the progress report tab. If you click the progress report printer, you'll find student activity reports, teacher activity reports. And once we update with some of the other metrics there, they'll appear there. Other thoughts, needs we can help with while we're together?
Hey, Ben, this is Sean. One thing that I would share is that if there are folks on the call, these guys we're really working hard to create some good resources for everyone. If you take a look at those resources and they are helpful, but you have needs that go beyond what's addressed there, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is sean@empowerlearning.net. And that email is also on our website under contact. So you don't have to remember that precisely, but we are happy to help in any way that we can.
Yeah, very good. And same on our side, making ourselves available to not only create resources, but manage through Sean, get our trainers available to make sure that your teachers are getting the needs met that they've got. I think that might be it, Kevin.
I have one.
All right. Thanks again for joining us for this quick webinar,
Kevin, I think
guys.
Terry had another question. Go ahead, Terry.
This is Kenesha Kingston. Sorry, I promised this next one. We're struggling quite a bit. A large percentage of our students have IEPs, so we're struggling quite a bit with how do we articulate for the purposes of IDEA that what we're doing in Empower sort of serves the purposes of what special education students may need.
Yeah.
We know everything is there. Our students know it and they feel it. Our teachers see it. Yeah. But we're just having a big challenge of saying, like, by using this system with the Marzano framework, this is what our kids with special education have. Have you guys thought through that? Some schools are planning to be sued, because there's just so many complications that comes with special education, not physically being in the building. We're trying to be proactive about it in what we communicate. I just wonder if you guys have thought about it at all, or you have any language that you would advise, or if there's any guidance for students with special needs as you train teachers or work with other school districts.
Yeah. So the question is that, Kevin, about students with IEPs, et cetera. I don't think it's as much connection about how Empower deals with that. It sounds like, are you familiar with our IEP tools and PLPs and things like that? The tools that
we've seen it. We haven't fully utilized it. I don't know if there's like separate materials that are out there. It's more of trying to include those in whatever. It's like we have to convince other people, right, that Empower is doing this for our kids.
And reports that we don't have a lot of literature or white papers, to my knowledge, coming out of Empower on those things. But the work that we do, the tools that we do, is all designed to support the work that Dr. Marzano and others have done. So we may have more success looking there at for some literature, which sounds like what you're looking for.
Okay. Yes.
Empower's focus is more manifesting, delivering those ideas. But again, if you shoot me an email, kind of express your need, then I can help you hunt down perhaps those things, connect to the right people, et cetera, that might be able to get you some good help with what you're looking for, I hope.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we've got just 6 minutes. We have a hard stop coming up. Any other thoughts, questions, needs? Okay, Kevin, take us home.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Again, first time using this platform. I believe that it will share with you guys automatically some resources when we finish this webinar. And I'll check in with some of you to make sure that actually happened. And if not, we will reach out individually and share resources with you guys. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kevin.